All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakah Quitash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who have taught me this truth and who rule well in this truth. Shalom to the 144,000 and the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel that is scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Peace and mercy unto you. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you are the true Hebrew Israelites that the Bible speaks of. You are the true chosen people of the Bible, all right, of that book, all right? So let's get into it, man. I got this article here coming from Natural News, all right? And the title of this article reads, Pentagon officials, all right? U.S. lacks defense against hypersonic missiles from China and Russia, all right? That goes into prophecy, all right? When you read Ezekiel, all right, the 38th chapter, all right, it talks about Russia invading the land of Israel, all right? And it's also twofold as well. First and foremost, it's talking about Russia invading the land of Israel, all right? But it's also talking about America, right? So when you read that chapter, all right, about Russia invading the land of Israel, all right, in this Third World War, all right, Israel and America is known as the land of unwalled villages, right? Now, why is Israel and America known as the land of unwalled villages, all right? A land without walls, right? A land that is unwalled, all right, is a land without protection, right? Now, why is America and Israel known as the land of unwalled villages, a land without protection, right? Because there's not going to be any type of defense missile system or missile defense system that's going to stop, all right, these ICBM missiles, all right, that carry multiple nuclear warheads from hitting America and Israel, man. All right, because that's prophecy. All right, Ezekiel the 38th chapter is prophecy, and you can't stop prophecy. All right, you can't stop the land of Israel from being destroyed. All right, and you can't stop the land of America. All right, the United States of America from being destroyed. All right, because the Lord's will is going to be done. And what is the Lord's will? All right, to completely eradicate and obliterate, all right, America from off the face of this earth, and also Israel. All right. But the difference between America and Israel is that America is never going to be built back up once it's completely eradicated and obliterated from off the face of this earth. All right. But Israel is going to be built back up because that's the Holy Land. All right. That's their headquarters. All right. That's going to be the land flowing with milk and honey. It just has to be set on fire. All right. Because that land is greatly defiled. All right. And fire is the best cleansing agent. So that land has to be cleansed before the true Israelites return back to that land. All right. But let's get into this article, man. All right. Pentagon officials. All right. U.S. lacks defense against hypersonic missiles from China and Russia. And again, that goes to fulfill prophecy. America has to not have, all right, a strong defense system. All right. So that prophecy could be fulfilled, man. All right. It's crazy how Russia, right, has not only the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, right, but the most powerful nuclear weapons on this earth. All right. Mixed with a lack of defense. All right. Coming from America, man. Because it's prophecy that Russia is going to destroy America, man, in its Third World War. By nuclear destruction, not just Russia, but Russia's allies, man. All right. And even America's allies. All right. Because America's allies are going to turn against this place. That's Revelation the 17th chapter. Right. Everyone is seeing through America's nonsense, man. Everybody hates this place, man. All the nations of this earth hate this place, man. They're tired of America's madness. All right. So they're going to all these nations are going to shoot missiles over here to destroy it. That's the will of the Heavenly Father. right? That's the will of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, all right? Bahashim Yahweh Shai, all right? But let's get into this article, man, all right? Enough ranting. Let's actually read this article, man, all right? But just to let y'all know, man, all right? It says, let me see if y'all can see it, you know. All right, yeah, y'all can see, all right? Y'all can see, all right? It says, senior officials at the Department of War told lawmakers, all right, on Monday, April 27th, that the United States has no effective defense, all right, against hypersonic and cruise missiles developed by China and Russia. And it has to be that way, all right? So the Lord's word could be fulfilled. So prophecy can be fulfilled, all right? The Lord said, my word shall not return unto me void. All right, it has to be that America has no defense against hypersonic and cruise missiles developed by China and Russia, right? Because Russia, all right, according to prophecy, when you read Jeremiah 50, right? Jeremiah 51, all right? Isaiah, all right, the 13th chapter, all right, is all talking about Russia coming against this place, right? And that's why Russia is also allies with Iran, right? Because the whole point is to bring, Russia into this third world war, right? By causing a war between the U.S. and Israel against Iran, right? Come on, man. All right. So it says, and that's going to fulfill prophecy. Ezekiel the 38th chapter, right? It says, Assistant Secretary of War for Space Policy Mark Berkowitz, right? Small Hatter, right? Described the existing homeland defense system as very limited, right? Right? America's defense system is very limited. It has to be that way, right? Russia carrying not only the largest nuclear arsenal, but the largest, all right, the most powerful nuclear weapons mixed with America's very limited defense system, right? Right? It says, and designed only against a small-scale rogue attack during his testimony at a Senate Armed Services, right, committee hearing on Monday, all right? He stated that the U.S. has no defense against hypersonic weapons or cruise missiles today, all right, according to his prepared remarks, right? Michael Gitlein, right, head of the Golden Dome Missile Defense Program within the U.S. Space Force, testified that both China and Russia continue to modernize and expand their arsenals. That's the Lord that's the Spirit of the Lord that has it like that, man. All right. Russia and China's weapon system is going to be more modernized, more advanced than America's weapons and system and defense system, man. So prophecy could be fulfilled. That's the Lord that has it like that, man. All right. Come on, man. We've been telling you, man, that America's going to be destroyed. America is going to be wiped off the face of this earth by nuclear destruction. That's biblical prophecy, man. America's destruction is written all throughout the scriptures, man. And the prophets of the Lord, all right, the Israelites, all right, starting with the Israelites of Great Millstone and the ones that teach in like manner, because that's where the 100% truth is at, right? Have been teaching you America's destruction, the downfall, and have been prophesying to you the downfall and the destruction of America, man. All right. Let's keep reading. It says, Berkowitz emphasized that the current ground-based interceptor system is a single-layer defense that was never intended to counter sophisticated threats from peer competitors. All right, the system, he said, was specifically designed for a limited attack from rogue states. Woo! All right, let me see if you can see it real quick. Yeah. All right, it says, we have a very limited ground-based single-layer homeland defense system that was specifically designed against a small-scale rogue attack, right? Berkowitz said, all right, according to the official transcript, right? It says other defense analysts have echoed these concerns, noting that the U.S. has invested hundreds of billions of dollars in missile defenses since the 1980s, but the technology has not kept pace with the evolution of hypersonic and cruise missile threats. Woo! America's done, bro. All right? Let the weak say I am strong. All right? These other nations have surpassed America. All right? These other nations that were once weak are now strong, man. Let the weak say I am strong, man. All right? That's why when you read I think it's Jeremiah. Let's get it real quick. I'm not sure if it's in Jeremiah. As weak as we. I think it's in Isaiah. Yeah. It says Isaiah 14, which this chapter is also talking about America's destruction and the downfall of this damn devil, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, starting with the elite bankers, right? The satanic Illuminati, elite, Edomite, wicked banking families, right? So it says Isaiah 14:10, as they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Yeah, because America is not going to be able to protect itself. All right. You know, these nations that were once weak, all right, are no longer weak. All right. Jeremiah, the 3rd chapter. Let the weak say I am strong. Right. These nations that were once weak are no longer weak anymore, man. Right. Because at one time, America was the powerhouse. Right. You know, during the time when they dropped the missiles on Japan. Right. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Right. Those bombs. Right. And that's what made the nations scared of America, because that was the first time a bomb of that level, you know, with that type of power has been dropped on a nation, man, in war. That was the beginning of the nuclear age, right? But now in the modern day, all right, all these nations have that same power, right? So these nations are saying, what? Are thou as become weak as we? That's to America, man. All right. Are thou become like unto us? Yeah, because America's that weak nation now. All right. These other nations that were once weak are no longer weak. But now America, you know, hasn't been able to keep up with that technology, like we're reading in this article, man. All right. It says other defense analysts have echoed these concerns, noting that the U.S. has invested hundreds of billions of dollars in missile defenses since the 1980s, but the technology has not kept pace with the evolution of hypersonic and cruise missile threats. So America, you know, they stood still in the technology, man. All right, now they're the weak nation, right? And that's why you read in Isaiah 14:10, these other nations are basically telling America, right? Are thou also become as weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Yeah, right? Because America is going to be destroyed, right? Let's keep reading. Isaiah 14:11. It says, thy pomp is brought down. Yeah, the pride of this place, right, is going to be brought down because it's going to be destroyed, right? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, right? The worm is spread under thee, all right, and the worms cover thee, all right, going into America's destruction, right? How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Lucifer talking about Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, starting with the elite bankers, right? It says, son of the morning, how art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? That's right. All right, Esau, Edom, right? Come on, man. All right. So let's go back into this article. It says the inability to track and intercept such weapons leave critical infrastructure, all right, and population centers vulnerable, officials said. Yeah, all right, the scripture talk about that. You know, everyone here is going to die. All right, there's not going to be one person left. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find that real quick. That's in Jeremiah, right? Jeremiah 50. Let me go get my scriptures real quick. Yeah, all right, so let's get Jeremiah 50:29, all right? Because like it says right here, all right, it says the inability to track and intercept intercept such weapons leave critical infrastructure and population centers vulnerable. All right, the population of America is going to become zero, right? So let's get that right. Jeremiah 50 and 29, right? All right, prophecy against Babylon, all right? The prophecy against this place, not for this place, against this place, all right? Babylon being America is to be obliterated off the face of this earth. Jeremiah 50 and 29, it reads, all right, it says, call together the archers against Babylon, the archers being the other nations, right? They're going to shoot that bow, which are these missiles, right? These arrows, which is that missile, which is those missiles, right? Call together the archers, all right, against Babylon, which is America, all ye that bend the bow, which is these other nations, right? Camp against it round about, let none thereof escape, right? Nobody in America is going to escape the nuclear destruction, right? So that goes into what we're reading in this article, right? Population centers vulnerable, right? So it says, let's keep reading. It says, Gutlein, all right, pointed to specific systems that pose new challenges for U.S. sensors and interceptors. These include hypersonic glide vehicles, warheads that can maneuver at high speeds. Yeah, all right, you have something that's known as the mutant missile, right? Let's get that, right? Mutant missile, right? Right? Which are warheads that can swivel, man. Right? As you can see, right? Look, the head of the warhead, it swivels, so it's able to change directions in the middle of flight, right? You see how it's on a swivel, got the swivel, right? So it's able to change directions, man. All right, look at that. Let's see if we got other photos here. All right, it's known as a mutant missile, right? You see, all right. So it got a look right here. Look, so it's able to change directions, man, mid-flight. Right? Come on, man. Right? So that's why you read here, you know, warheads that can maneuver at high speeds within the atmosphere after launch, you see? All right, and Russia's nuclear-powered Berezovsky, all right, cruise missile, all right? Gutlein said these weapons are designed to challenge the tracking and engagement capabilities of our sensors and to ensure a responsive and survivable strike capability, all right? According to military analyst Andrei, all right, Martyanov, all right, the introduction of the three M22 Zircon hypersonic missile has already dramatically redefined naval warfare and makes even remote sea zones unsafe for major U.S. surface combatants. Woo! All right, it says Martyanov, all right, also noted that no technology currently exists to intercept such a missile. Woo! That's the spirit of the Lord. Call her Loyam, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. The water, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. All right, Abad Babak. All right, meaning death to America, right? It says the Chinese military, meanwhile, is expanding its arsenal, all right, of long-range missiles and hypersonic glide vehicles as part of a broader effort to challenge U.S. military dominance in the Pacific region, right? Let's keep reading. We got a little bit more, all right? It says U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled the Golden Dome initiative shortly after taking office in January 2025, all right, proposing a large-scale investment to expand ground and space-based missile defense capabilities. Initial estimates from the Trump administration projected the cost at approximately $175 billion over the next decade, according to the report. All right. If we even got that long, right? It says War Department projections have since risen to roughly 185 billion, and some analysts warn the final price could be substantially higher, right? And I don't think we have that long. Hopefully we don't have that long. We want to get out of here, man. All right. Director, the Lord said those days shall be shortened for the elect's sake, right? That's why you see time moving by so fast, bro. Right? Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, right, warned on March 19, 2026 that the missile threat to America's homeland is projected to surge fivefold as adversaries rapidly expand their arsenals. Woo! Right? Call her Law Yum Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. Right? The escalating cost reflect both the technical difficulty of developing reliable defenses against maneuvering hypersonic weapons, right? And the need to deploy additional sensors and interceptors across multiple domains, all right, including space, right? It says Moscow has stated that the investment in advanced strategic weapons was largely a response to the U.S. withdrawal from the 1972 anti-ballistic missile treaty under President George W. Bush, right? Russian officials have long warned that the U.S. missile shield, undermines nuclear deterrence by enabling a potential decapitating first strike. All right. In that scenario, American missile interceptors could be used to neutralize a retaliatory strike by surviving Russian missiles, right? Some independent analysts argue that the U.S. pursuit of missile defenses have fueled an arms race and that hypersonic weapons now render those defenses obsolete, right? Woo! All right. Yeah, they're obsolete, man. All right. It says in an interview, Martyanov stated that Washington lacks a coherent military strategy and its technological lead has eroded. All right. That goes into Isaiah 14. All right. Has thou become weak as we? Right. It says spoken word commentary, all right, has also highlighted that hypersonic glide vehicles may already be in use as warning shots in ongoing geopolitical confrontations. All right. The combination of limited defenses and expanding rival arsenals, officials said, creates a strategic vulnerability that the Golden Dome program is intended to address. All right, though its ultimate effectiveness remains uncertain. Right? Says War Department warnings about the lack of defense against hypersonic weapons from China and Russia, right, underscore a significant gap in U.S. strategic capabilities. Yeah, those are two superpowers, man. Right? And the Lord set them up, right, to destroy America. All these nations are going to destroy America. All these nations are going to have their hand in the destruction of America. It's only going to take 1 hour for America to be destroyed. When you read Revelation 18, which talks about America's destruction in this third world war, right? America being destroyed by nuclear fire, right? It tells you that in 1 hour shall thy judgment come. It's only going to take 1 hour, 60 minutes for the entire land of the United States of America to be destroyed. For the entire land of Babylon to be destroyed. All right? Abad Babal, right? So it says, while the proposed Golden Dome system aims to close that gap, its high cost and technical challenges raise questions about feasibility. Without effective defense, officials said the United States have increased risk from adversaries who have invested heavily in next generation strike system. And that's the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, that set it up like that, man. Gave these other nations a greater technology, man. All right. So his word can be fulfilled so that America could be destroyed, completely eradicated and obliterated off the face of this earth by being swallowed and engulfed by nuclear fire. All right. So there you have it, man. All right. This is what's going on, man. All right. America's destruction is at hand, man. All right. We don't have 10, 12, 13 years here left, man. The way it's looking, right? Because prophecy is moving, right? So, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Ratazah, this lesson is or was edifying. Call Haloyam Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rakal Quitash. All right, on to the next one. Shalom, shalom.